Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires that we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
You know, I used to think it was awful that life wasn't so unfair. Life was so unfair. But then I thought, wouldn't it be much worse if life were fair and all the terrible things that happen to us come because we actually deserve them? So now I take great comfort in the general hostility and unfairness of the universe.
It's not that the universe is hostile. It's that the universe is indifferent.
I would take credit for that, but that was actually uttered by Marcus Cole in Babylon 5. Yeah, it is. It doesn't care. It's just there.
Everybody dies frustrated and sad, and that is beautiful. They might be giants.
Well, hello. It's been how many friggin' weeks since we did one of these live?
I don't even know.
I know. I mean,
I don't remember how to do this.
I don't either. It's like we should just say this is our number one show.
Ooh, reboot. It's a reboot.
Reboot. Those seem to be classy. As you know, the last couple of weeks, I regret the error, but I was not available to podcast. The first
one out in the world doing things.
Well, sort of. The first one I was up at a lake, which was gorgeous because I didn't have to do anything. You know, it was just my wife got to borrow her boss's cabin for a while, and we went up there, and they had great internet. So I would just sit and kind of do my thing, and Chris would be working, and then all of a sudden she'd be done, and she would have a meeting for an hour, and she'd say, "Hey, let's go sit down by the dock." So we sat down by the dock. Water, breeze. Didn't need a bay. We had a gorgeous lake. I mean, yeah, it was a Wisconsin lake, but it was clear. It was sandy. We went swimming. It was just lots of fun. And then, of course, generally when I do get-togethers with people, people say, "When you're around?" I say, "Well, Tuesday, Wednesday are usually my days." "Oh, you're not Friday, Saturday, Sunday?" I said, "No, my work week is then. Always reserve Thursday to do podcasts." So here's how it went last week. We had a cousin get together. When a couple of my cousins passed away, it was a weird weekend. My aunt had passed away, so they had hang on, I'm getting it all confused. Actually, I've had three relatives pass away. My aunt, I couldn't go to her funeral because I had COVID. My cousin's father. And then the same weekend, my cousin, not same cousin, obviously, he had passed away. So as we did the various get-togethers, except my aunts who I couldn't go to, everybody's like, we should get together. I said, "Oh, cool. Any Wednesday, Thursday, Tuesday, I'm ready." So guess which day they decide they want to get together for the first time in like mega years?
Well, that would be Thursday.
Well, of course. And as much as I'm thinking, oh, I shouldn't do this, I'm also very cognizant of the fact that, yes, we're all getting older. I don't want to even go down the litany of friends that have passed away. Many we've talked about on this here podcast. So, fine. So, again, before we started, I'd mentioned to Cory, I'm very, very hungry because we have a Minnesota tradition called the Minnesota State Fair. And right now, Facebook feeds from people in Minnesota are full of all the yummy foods they're eating while I'm sitting here trying to get a toasted cheese sandwich correct. Well, guess my friends are all like, "Well, when are we going to go out?" Well, a lot of them are going to see different shows. My wife actually went to go see the show tonight. I think Alice in Chains with a few other people. There's not single headlines. Like, I wanted to go see REO Speedwagon Styx, but I work weekends. I can't get off weekends. Matter of fact, my wife's going to a friend's wedding alone this weekend because I can't get off work because this is kind of like the big hurrah. People are taking time off. It's kind of a dead zone between summer travel and winter travel that lasts like right before Thanksgiving. So flights are low, easy to travel, that type of thing. So my friends are like, "Well, what day are we going to go?" I said, "Well, I'm available Tuesday, Wednesday." Well, here's how it goes. The one guy who kind of dominates, he's like, Well, let's go the first. Well, I really can't go the first. And his wife's like, can't we do it Tuesday, Wednesday? Nope, I want to go to first. So I won't be around next week either, Cory.
Oh, good.
Yeah. But, I'll be out at the fair eating stuff. I'll bring you some donuts or something. Actually, it doesn't even mean anything because you can get cheese curds and donuts almost anywhere now.
Well, and the other thing is there's this traveling group of people. I forget their name, but they set up in different parking lots every weekend.
Yeah, we have one like 4 blocks from us. A bunch of food trucks and stuff.
And they have one is your Pronto Pops and the all of that. The next one is your cheese curds and the last one is the mini donuts and stuff. And
Not
they all
even
have
like somebody doing pseudo Chinese egg rolls or something.
It depends on where they're setting up and everything, because I went and it's the people who set up at fairs, and when there's not a fair for them to set up at, they set up at like the parking lot of a shopping mall or some other huge big box store.
Well, we ran across one that time we were geeking and went to the Blue Soda Shop.
Yes.
And there was some donuts, I think, right there. So we even a restaurant that closed down, used to be Romolo's Pizza, sets up, and they have food trucks parked in the back, and they take off after making their food, and then they come back and they park at night. They've actually reopened the restaurant, which my wife and I keep forgetting about because every time we're like, hey, let's go out to eat somewhere.
And
we could walk 2 blocks and do it.
Here in Chaska, we're getting one of those food truck festivals where wrestler ODB will be setting up her food truck, which is called the Meet and Greet. Cool. And not only can you get stuff, but you can get T-shirts that say, I'll beat your meat if you pull my pork.
I personally would like to get a T-shirt that says, I don't want to go anywhere that's not within 10 miles of a Target store. Actually, somebody said that on that show I love, the Jason show. Jason actually said that because his co-host went camping. I mean, really camping, like up in the Boundary Waters where there were no cell service. Everything was packed in, packed out. She was explaining portage, going through a canoe portage, where you have to put it on your shoulders. And the host, Jason, who is no means any type of camper, outdoor, sporty spice type thing, was aghast. And he said that. He said, I don't want to go anywhere that's not within 10 miles of a Target. And then, of course, somebody brought him a T-shirt and gave it to him and said that.
I have often said for me, camping and roughing it is staying at a hotel that doesn't have Turner Classic Movies.
As I'm getting older, I used to sleep on the ground. Boy Scout camper. If I thought I could pack in a cushion or a blow-up mattress if I wanted to carry the weight or the bulk. But I recall sleeping on the ground. Now it's like, boy, just even sleeping on the couch, I feel like, oh, God, what the hell did I do to my side? I would, if it wasn't for the thousands of people out there, Cory, I would love to get you out there because they previewed a pizza, pickle pizza with creamy ranch. And it looks terrible, but everybody who sampled it on the various TV shows I've seen are all like, this is really good. And it would just be fun to run through there and try to find those really weird foods. They have one that I'm going to try, tater tot hot dog. You know the Pronto puff, whatever. Hot dog on a stick, corn dog. What they do is they take tater tots and cook it around a hot dog. And they previewed one of those, and I was like, oh, that is so going to be my first stop.
Now, I was out in the world.
What?
Yes, because on my birthday, AEW came to town.
AEW.
Had a show down at the Target Center.
Wait.
Dynamite.
Let me make a prediction. Butch did not go.
No, he did not.
I'm shocked. Really,
And
I am, considering how much he likes wrestling.
And neither did the boy.
Well, he's married, you know. I don't know how into wrestling he is.
So Evelyn, my foster daughter, came along. She had not watched wrestling in quite a while, but she knew CM Punk and she knew Bryan Danielson, and has listened to me talk endlessly about the Young Bucks. And it was a really good show, a lot of fun. We had great seats. I sat next to a member of the Gagne family.
Oh, really?
Not one that anybody knows.
Yeah.
Because he was not he wasn't a wrestler, but he was there. Talked a little about wrestling in the old days when things were quiet.
Oh,
And,
I would love to talk to him.
Really fun show. I got in with my press pass because I'm an actual journalist. And I read all kinds of comics, including, I want to point out a website that I went to where I did spend more money than I should have, but I spent more money than I thought I would. And that is cheapgraphicnovels.com.
Oh,
Normally,
yes.
I only go there when they have their huge sales, but they had a nick and dent sale.
Oh.
And I've ordered stuff from their nick and dent sales before, and it's usually, I'm just looking to get cheap graphic novels and stuff. They showed up, and on 3 of the 4, I could not tell that they were either nicked or dented.
Sweet.
I got, let's see, the first Power Man Epic collection. What was the other one? The Loki Omnibus. And the reason I got it was because it was just so cheap. That's a $125 omnibus, and I was able to pick it up so dirt cheap. It was like, how much did it end up being? $40. The Daredevil Epic Collection, Brother Take My Hand, which is the 3rd Daredevil Epic Collection. And then the last one was the Marvel Cosmic Universe by Donny Cates. Normally $100, $40 as well. The Epic collections were both $15. And they showed up a few days ago, and the Loki Omnibus, one of the things about the Loki Omnibus, which is why I waited until I found it ultra dirt cheap, is, boy, those stories are pretty much all the same.
Yeah. Yeah, he was just an evil. He should have had a mustache to twirl. He was so evil.
Well, the problem is something happened to Odin, and Loki takes over Asgard. And he then, throws Thor out and has people attack Thor. And they do that over and over again. And you would think by the 3rd time, Thor would have tapped his dad and gone, hey, can you kind of change some rules so that he can't do that anymore? But no, we get to have the same story over and over and over and over. But, we get it by Kirby, and we get it by John Buscema, and we get it by Keith Pollard. It's very much an omnibus you should not sit down, start reading as if you're reading a novel, because of the repetitive nature of it. And in a lot of ways, it's why I didn't like DC when they put out, what were they? The showcases, because a lot of their stuff was very similar.
Oh, yeah.
And with Marvel, you're reading it like it's a soap opera. With DC, it's, okay, all right, okay. Gosh, it's the same story.
Audience.
It's the same story again.
When you're reading it month to month, you don't realize how formulaic it gets.
Right.
Plus, you were never guaranteed back then you'd find the next issue, which is why, as I would collect comics back in BC before collecting and I discovered a comic shop, I would oftentimes just look in the back. If it said to be continued, I would put it back, because there'd be no way I'd ever be guaranteed to see it.
And the big thing about the DCs was, you're going to pick up a Superman comic, and there's going to be a different Superman comic the next week. But, oh, this is Superman with Batman, or this is Action Comics, which had backup stories, etc., etc., etc. They didn't expect their fans to sit and read them one after the other, after the other, after the other. Plus, they were aimed at a younger audience than Marvel. And kids don't mind the same story over and over, as anyone with a child and Disney movies knows.
Absolutely. Well, there were a comic show and then the following day a toy show, as you know, because I list them, almost every time. So I was able to pick up some stuff. I've actually been behaving myself because this is kind of, to finish the toy show, the first toy show was, actually the comic show was Saturday. I was limited by two things. The comic show started at 10 and I had to be on the road by 10:30 so I could get to work. Fortunately, it was in Bloomington. And I ran across a couple things, and I really didn't buy a lot. First off, I ran into, I don't even know if he's a listener or a show, a guy, Steve Henninger, and he's doing a graphic novel with Lance Ward called Cream of Steve, and he gave me a sampler of it. I haven't read it yet, but I'm kind of interested to see what it's about. If it's based on Steve's life. I really didn't get a chance to talk to him much because he ends up, it's con. He was selling stuff, so he was busy. I did pick up a couple things from Granite City. Tim was down there. Hey! And of course, I had them a minute ago. Now I don't know where they went. The first one was a book I was trying to find. I for some reason, during one of those $1 shows, I picked up one of the books. It's a book called Two Step from Warren Ellis and Amanda Connor under the Cliffhanger logo. So I can't tell if this was wildstorm.com, if this was back in the Wildstorm days, or if this was after DC picked it up. So if you'll hold on a second here, I'll fire up the old atomicavenue.com and put in Two Step. And let's see, it's a 3-issue series. It says a little different than the average 4-color experience. It's a humor book. Let's see, sight gags, such as a rat smoking a cigarette, cat going to the bathroom. Characters are pleasingly polished in appearance. Well, Amanda Connor's doing the art. So I'm glad to have found that because I don't know why I picked up the first issue. Probably just because I saw, Ellis and Connor's name in the dollar bin. I thought I'll pick it up and then realized, oh crap, 3 issues. I'll never find the other one. The other thing I picked up was Doomsday Clock hardcover. Tim had it at half price. So, and I actually read it, and I'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to Freaking and Geeking because of the rereading section and stuff. At the Comic-Con, mixing them up again, the next day was the toy show. Remember this combo because it's going to come up again when we get to our show segment. One day there's going to be a show, next day is going to be a toy show. And I picked up, I walked around, I'm not looking to buy a lot of things. I'm still kind of in my clench mode from, hopefully you guys listened to the extended freaking from last week. So I'm not really digging like I was looking for things that I think I can flip. I did see something cool though. There was a place, and of course I lost the business card. They had a 1970s Jaws game based on the movie. And it's one of those games where I think like you take pieces out and you're trying to beat the timer. In other words, I think you're taking junk out of the jaws of the shark. And then eventually enough will be taken out where it'll snap shut. And if you happen to have your fishing pole in when it snaps, you're the loser. It was an interesting game. One of those, I remember seeing a Sears catalog thinking, oh, that's kind of cool. But as a kid game, cool. Now as a collector game, you're kind of like, oh, it's kind of interesting. And it was priced pretty good. I behaved myself. I only bought a couple Matchbox cars, a commemorative edition of the London bus, and a emergency ambulance. But I did find a guy selling comics, and I picked up a couple signed comics, a Green Lantern #1 signed by Jeff Johns, so you know exactly which one it was, and then a Midnight Nation, which is one of Joe's comics under the Top Cow logo, where J. Michael Straczynski signed it. This was one of those, 1,500 signed by, and I got like number 86. The Green Lantern was number 166 of only 500. And then I picked up the entire collection run for $1 a piece of Superman Birthright. So, and we had talked about it in an aborted show, which I suppose we should mention eventually.
I've talked about it.
Okay, good. But yeah, we were talking about the hardcover, and I was going to buy the hardcover, and I just didn't make the budget. And then I found this, and I'm like, well, holy cow, for $12, I got the entire thing. Not quite as nice as a nice hardcover with maybe some behind the scenes stuff, but serendipity, baby. So that was what I bought at the comic shop. You can tell it's been a while, hasn't it? The comic show / toy show. Same thing. I could only spend an hour there. They started at 9, but I had to be on the road by 10 to make it. Now, if that wasn't enough, Cory, I'll have you know, these past 3 days, I have visited almost every comic book shop in the Twin Cities. Because, of course, it's that time again when I'm running around passing out flyers for the Microcon 3 comic book show. I'll mention the date because we're going to mention a little bit later on in the show, September 24th. And as part of the thing, just to help out, I hit everybody in town. So we're talking, there was a few shops that already had them. I hit our buddy Steve at Cedar Cliff Collectibles. I didn't realize he opens at 10 o'clock on Wednesdays. Otherwise, I'd have been down there sooner. Comic College was already hit because, of course, they're right next to the source where Kelly works, the guy running the place. I hit Dreamer's Vault both in St. Louis Park and South St. Paul, where I was able to pick up it's a Sandman Special Edition #1, which has a gorgeous cover of the actor playing Sandman on it. And it's one of those freebies under DC's Black Label. And inside it's got maybe half of the first issue of Sandman that Sam Keith, Mike Dringenberg, and Neil Gaiman did, which I thought was kind of interesting. And they're saying it's from the excerpt from Sandman Book 1, Netflix series, yada, yada, yada. And then inside it has other goals. I only saw these, though, at Dreamer's Vault. And I visited 3 of their stores, Minneapolis, St. Louis Park, and South St. Paul. I don't know why I didn't see them at other shops. Either they didn't get them or they didn't give them away or whatever. Sometimes things like this are exclusives, and we all know about, like, movie tickets would show up at a comic shop, but just one comic shop. They didn't like spread them out to all of them or stuff. So maybe that's the case with this. I did stop by Dreamhaven Books, dropped off some flyers, and there I picked up, this is probably the most expensive purchase I made, the audio original of The Sandman. So I've been listening to people go on and on about how good it was, and I thought, you know what? I'll just pick it up, throw it in the car, listen to it as I drive to work and back. I met Granite City at the con I mentioned, so they took flyers. Heroic Games wasn't open, so I did what I normally do. I left an apology note for making a mess and slid it through the mailbox. Hit both Hot Comics, Richfield, Minneapolis. Issues needed, I did not stop at, but Chris Anderson, who's putting on a comic show on September 17th, said he was heading that way, so he grabbed some flyers for me. I did stop at both Level Up Games, Minneapolis and Hastings, and I got rumor that there's a new Level Up game popping up in St. Paul on West 7th Street in City Plaza, which is cool because I pass that every day going to work. And if they open at 10, ooh, the mischief I can get in.
Yeah, they announced it on Facebook.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Trying to find it. They announced it a few weeks ago, and boy, they post every day.
Yeah. And
which is smart. Very smart.
You want to make social media. I keep telling people if I had this social media while doing Crazy Comics, I might have kept it going because, you say, I just brought this into the shop. I'm doing this. Here's a special deal we're doing. Drive it to make it interesting. I stopped at Mind's Eye Comics.
There it is. I have the address. It's in Sibley Plaza, 2493 West 7th Street.
Does it say what they're next to?
No, not on this, but they have their own page here.
Well, when it opens in a couple weeks, I think they said it's opening 2 weeks before the show. So I'm going to swing by. I'll give you a quick review and I'll let you know because it's a big plaza. One end used to be a Champs restaurant. It's now, I think, an Anytime Fitness. The other end has a Subway. There's an Aldi's in the middle. But I did stop at Mind's Eye Comic. Said hi to the guys down there. I stopped at Nerding Out in Inver Grove Heights. Talked with him quite a bit. Outpost 2000 up near Northtown. I stopped all the way up in Remix in Forest Lakes. Said hi to Tim. Stopped at Rock Hopper Comics and Games, which we've talked about. And I'll give a shout out to because they've got just past their first anniversary, which is fantastic. And he says things are going really well. Did give some to Ultimate Collectibles, but he only took 3. Go figure. I was kind of confused by that, but then somebody else told me he's kind of mad at the MCBF because he couldn't get into the con. So I'm like, whatever. I did not get to Midway Books. I did not get to the Nostalgia Zone, Wizard Wax, or Gamers Island, which was closed when I went down to Hastings. So I will probably visit them next week. Hopefully they're open. And then next week, I'll be mailing out flyers to Greater Minnesota Store. I'm even toying with the idea of running to Duluth on Tuesday just to get out of Dodge because there's at least 5 places in Duluth to drop off flyers. You got 2 Collector Connections. One we haven't visited yet. The new one in Superior, which is more back issues. You got the Toy Zone, I think, next to Collector Connection. There's a Gaming Up, which doesn't really do a lot of, or maybe it's a Level Up that doesn't do a lot of games, but then there's a Global News there as well that you and I went to. And last time I dropped off flyers, they were pretty cool about it. But like I said, I behaved myself. The biggest thing I bought was the Sandman thing. I did find a copy of Ultramax Book 3, which for some reason I did not order. Got that through Issues Needed. And then when I was in Nerding Out, they had an Amazing Spider-Man number 181, which is one of those that I was just thinking about. There were 2 comics that came out that month that were very similar. This and an X-Men comic, which came out right after the death of Jean Grey. So that would have been 138, I think.
Yes.
And what was interesting is in the single comic, they were able to summarize everything that had happened in the Spider-Man book, Spider-Man in the X-Men book. Boy, you couldn't do that in a single comic nowadays.
Well, you could.
No.
Because you would condense a lot of stuff. But you can't do that in a comic now because people would go, oh, it's a filler. It's a fill-in.
And see, this I didn't buy.
And they wouldn't buy it.
I don't know if I viewed this as a fill-in because this was right after I was like brand new buying comics. Because again, my first comic was 181. So for me, this was amazing to like, and I knew some of it because I had found the old trade paperbacks of Spider-Man. So it was kind of like, oh, well, I kind of know what was going on. For some reason, I knew about Gwen Stacy dying. Didn't realize the impact it had. So it was just kind of a nostalgia thing. I thought it was kind of fun. Maybe I'll revisit that in one of our reviews because I got it set aside to read.
I've listened to comic editors talk about this, and it's because comics aren't on the newsstand anymore, and they don't have a casual audience anymore. They in the 80s and 90s, they kind of repackaged these as separate series, such as Marvel Saga or things like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we used to buy them all the time.
One of the things Roy Thomas talked about is every so often they would do an issue where they retold the origin. And it's because they felt that the audience turned over every 3 to 5 years. Well, you notice they're not doing that, where Reed Richards and Ben Grimm are sitting in the Baxter building and go, you remember before we had powers, and then do a retelling of the origin.
Remember when we were back in World War II and fought with Nick Fury?
But they don't do that anymore. And one of the reasons that the editors have said is when we do stories that aren't part of a larger narrative, readership goes down because current comic fans see issues like that as not counting, which is very weird to me as someone who started reading comics in the 70s, and that was sort of a way for a creative team to kind of do a reset. It's when Roy Thomas came on the Fantastic Four, his first issue was a retelling of the origin, and then he went from there off in his own direction. And the first issue that you're talking about, that was Marv Wolfman's first issue, where he's saying, okay, here's where everything started, and I'm going to go off in a different direction now.
And you remember what he did?
Oh, yeah. He was like, okay, every issue up to issue 200, something huge is going to happen.
Well, and of course, right away in 182, he brought back Rocket Racer. Okay, they weren't all good. But then the trivia
and the
question
big wheel.
comes. The big wheel, yes. The fight of the century. Telling you people, check it out. But it did get better because they got rid of the Spider-Man wanted by the police. They actually referenced the Spider-Man novel that had been published.
Yes, because that was written by Len Wein and Marv Wolfman.
Mm-hmm. They let Peter graduate. They killed off Aunt May. No, she got better. Don't worry, I don't want to panic people. But
and she died again.
Yep. But it was just a role of a lifetime. And then she got married. And whatever. Now, there was something that came up over the last couple of days that I read, and it really filled me with a sense of dread. Brian Hibbs, we've talked about in the past, is an ultimate micro analyst. And he's talking about, he has almost a 5-part column. It didn't start out that way, but it ended up that way, where he talks about how Diamond is, and I'm trying to be polite, messing around with retailer discounts again, including what I'd call legacy guys like him who used to cap out at 55%. And now suddenly Diamond's like, okay, everybody's at 50%. Well, what Brian brings up the point is that Diamond Comics treats their shipping as a profit generator. No other distributor does that, which is always kind of the current pull from the retailers. I don't want to jump ahead because I talked to a lot of the retailers as I was visiting all the different shops about how business was. You order graphic novels from Penguin, and I think you can order everything except Image, Diamond. There's a few, Source Point Press. There's a few others where you can't order them anywhere else but Diamond. You can only order comic books through Diamond or Lunar. But for the most part, if you want comic books, Diamond is pretty much it. And even Diamond's not shipping them the way you would expect them to. There was a lot of pushback because, especially was it Penguin, when comics would show up and they were all damaged because they didn't pack them.
Right.
And that's the way books are sent. They box them, pack them, ship them, because if they're damaged, they rip the cover off and return them. That's just the way it is. Everything's returnable. Well, comics aren't returnable. And it took a while for Penguin to change that, and I think they're still going at it. But I was talking with one retailer. He says Diamond they don't ship everything together. It's almost like, okay, you order 50 Spawn. They're not in one box. You might get 3 in one box, 50 in another, or whatever, 5 in another. They're not all together, or they're mixed in, making unpacking extremely time consuming. That was just a report for one thing. But Brian Hibbs came up with the thing that a lot of the retailers now, especially a smaller one, may not get the full tiered discount because it's only generated once every 6 months or so, and then you're stuck with it. Everybody starting out gets 50%, and then based on your order patterns, you'll be adjusted, which itself is tough. But when you tie in the shipping, suddenly that 50% discount, you're getting books in at 45 or less. And Brian figures any book, any comic book, he gets at less than 45% discount, he loses money on. And there's no reason to carry it. Even if it's 100% sell through, because of the shipping charged on that, he does not make enough for that title to be worthwhile. I don't think most comic retailers work that way. I know I didn't. I was always cognizant of shipping, especially during the retailer wars when we busted into from 1 to 3 distributors, and suddenly my shipping costs tripled, especially when Cap shut down their warehouse locally and they had to ship stuff to me. I thought that was kind of scary because that could also explain when I was working Crazy Comics. Even though I was selling out of books, I was always breaking even. I was never making money. I didn't microanalyze everything because I just threw my accountant told me to throw shipping in the cost of goods sold. So yeah, okay, here's a Ultramax comic. Okay, I get 40% on it. Well, by the time I tack shipping on per book, that means it's probably more like 35. And to make it even worse, Diamond only gives you a better discount the more you buy.
Right.
But he can make more profits buying through the book distributors, especially the graphic novels, because there's no shipping involved. And most of them sound like they're giving. It used to be like when I looked at book distributing, it was like the best you would get would be 20, maybe 25% on a special, but you could return them. And now it's the graphic novels are not returnable, but you get upwards of 50% if you agree not to do it that way. I find it hard to believe like Barnes and Noble are doing it that way, but that's significant. And when I talked to a few of the other retailers, they said that's kind of a headache, kind of tracking what's coming, being that periodicals are time sensitive. If I don't get them, I will go 9 miles down the road to another shop and pick it up. I said that Ultramax book, the only reason I found it at Issues Needed is because I was talking with them and I asked them, because, oh, do you have this? And they did, which was cool. And they looked it up on their computer, which I thought was even cooler. I never had that because they weren't around. They can look everything up and say, yeah, we got it. It's in stock. And they dig and, oh, here it is. It's just covered up by something else. So kudos to them for the extra work. But so anyways, the point being is, I don't know, Cory, if you've read this series.
I read his, and I actually have pulled up some numbers since you were talking.
And that's what I wanted to get your take on it, because for me, it gave me a cold feeling, and also that headache I got in the back of my eye when I used to deal with 3 distributors back in the 70s. Even Tim, when I talked to him at Granite City, he's like, yeah, we're moving our books over to another distributor because that discount's too big to ignore.
Yeah. So Comic Cron and ICBW, They do a sales report every year. So I have the charts here from 2016 to 2021. In 2016, graphic novels were a little over 500 million, and comics were a little under 500 million. Since then, comics have stayed about the same, while graphic novels have gone to $1.5 billion.
Say that again one more time.
In 2016, graphic novels were a little over $500 million. This is complete, all sold, all of them. A little over 500 million. Comics were a little under 500 million. In 2021, comic books 435 million, a little under 500 million, and graphic novels $1.47 billion. Graphic novels have gone up 300% in the past 5 years. Readership is moving toward graphic novels. Comics are staying the same. Your monthly comic is staying the same, which is why both Marvel and DC have started their sort of all-you-can-eat services. The Marvel Unlimited and the DC Universe, where you pay a certain amount a year. And the thing is, Hibbs talks about how the comics would sort of amortize the cost of the graphic novels. Historically, when you go back to the early part of the 20th century, let's take Tarzan. The Tarzan novels would be serialized in a magazine called Adventure, which came out every week. And when there was a new Tarzan novel, it would be, okay, this week, chapter 1 of Tarzan, chapter 2 of Tarzan, on and on and on and on and on. Then when it was done, it would be collected and put in a book. And that continued through even the 60s and early 70s for science fiction and fantasy books. They would be in magazines and then collected in a book. They don't do that anymore. Nobody buys science fiction magazines. Nobody buys fantasy magazines. Nobody buys fiction magazines. What is it? Analog and fantasy and science fiction. They're lucky if they sell 25,000 copies. That is an old model that doesn't happen anymore. They just put out novels. Comics have hung on to that printing style far longer because of comic shops. And what's happening is that the prices are getting to the point where it's not going to be economically feasible for comic shops to do that anymore, because comic book sales are flat. They have not gone up. They haven't gone, well, they went down in 2019 and 2020, of course, because of the pandemic and such. But they've pretty much stayed about the same. Now, here's the other thing that ICV has. Hobby game sales for the first half of 2020 were $20.3 billion. This is for the whole year. For the whole year of 2020, hobby game sales, $20.3 billion. In 2021, they were $20.69 billion. So game sales are going up. What it is, if you have a comic shop and you are primarily focused on periodic comic books, the Wednesday Warrior crowd, they're not growing, but everything else is. The games are growing, the toys are growing, the graphic novels are 3 times what they were in the past 5 years. Now, we're also seeing what DC did. DC is like, okay, we can't raise prices because Marvel hasn't raised prices. Oh, I know. We'll put a special cover on and we could charge an extra $1.
Yeah,
and
cardboard stock.
Comic fans like the special covers. So it's kind of a stealth price raise. But in a lot of ways, the periodical comic, we've said it for years and years and years, is kind of a dinosaur. And sales are showing it. I think the people who still buy monthly comics are like you and me. People in their 20s, like your daughters, they're just going to buy graphic novels. They don't want to bother with a monthly
when
comic.
they want, if they think about it. Yeah.
Just like how people buy books. People don't go, oh, I need to make sure that I get to Barnes and Noble every month to pick up the new issue of Aboriginal science fiction. No, it's they go to the book section. They go, oh, this book looks cool, and this book looks cool, and this book looks cool. And comic publishers, the smart ones, have moved into we are book publishers. And you're getting more and more of that. And that's why I point out, when I say DC is being stupid by trying to drive people back to periodicals, it's not a feeling. It's hard numbers right there. And the fact that they have cut the number of graphic novels they put out, their comic sales are the same. They're not putting out as many graphic novels, so they're not making as much. Now, will that change with the new ownership? We're going to talk about that later. But when I read Brian Hibbs' stuff, there are two things about it. First is he's already been moving toward graphic novels anyway.
Yeah.
As his clientele is. But the second thing is he's still, like a lot of people who've been in the business for a long time, he's stuck in an old mindset. Just like you had Cap City. You didn't have to pay shipping. You just went over to the warehouse and picked up your stuff. San Francisco always had a distributor there. And he just drove to the warehouse and picked up the stuff. And I still remember his columns back when he first had to pay shipping. Lost his mind. Now, here's the other thing, that the book distributors, you're still paying that shipping. They just hide it in the cost of the book. Also, they put together special deals, kind of like we have a special deal when we're with Discount Comic Book Service. We pay $7.50 for shipping.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they just sent me a big old honking box that arrived by FedEx via 2-day shipping. There is no way it costs them $7.50 to package that, to pay for the shipping. I imagine that shipping costs $20, $30. They put that in the cost of the comics. Diamond's not going to do that because that's not their business model. Same for the other comic distributors. And if they were to hide the cost of shipping in the cost of the comics, I don't think people would complain about that. They would look at the cost of the comics they're getting and go, okay, I need to work out a way to make a profit off these books, rather than I'm working out a way to make a profit off these books, but oh my God, the shipping is killing me. Does that make sense? And the reason I ask is not because I don't think you're smart enough to keep up. It's, did I explain that? Did I explain the idea I have?
I think so, because I'm following you as a former comic shop person. I'm not sure if a non-business orientated person necessarily followed along.
Okay, look, when you go to the grocery store and there is a bag of tangerines, it's $5.99. And the grocery store makes about 20% profit on that bag of tangerines. So how do they figure those tangerines cost? Well, the distributor charges them a certain amount, but they also need to pay for getting the tangerines to their store. The food distributor charges them that. Now, does the food distributor charge them that as a separate line item? These tangerines are $3.50 for shipping. Or is it these tangerines are $3.50 and you get free shipping?
Yay!
Kind of like you do on eBay. You used to do on eBay.
Yeah. Yeah, I was explaining that to somebody earlier. It's, how do you sell on eBay? Well, okay, I take the book, my beloved brand new copy of Amazing Spider-Man 181. Really nice shape. Anyways, what's the lowest on eBay? Somebody's got it at 25 bucks. Okay, I've got mine. What did I pay for mine? 10 bucks. Factor in $5 for shipping, 20% eBay. Okay, maybe I'll wait, or maybe I'll put it up at 20 bucks, free shipping. Or better yet, if the guy's got 25 bucks plus shipping, 25 bucks free shipping. But you see what I mean by cost of goods sold. I mean, you look at what it is. What'd you pay for the comic? Okay, 10 cents bag and board, maybe 20 cents now. $1 because I use the Gemini mailers, shipping, which is about $5 for a single book. Then I always throw in a little, you've seen it, the kind of a flyer for the show, and on the other side I put a packing slip. As a sidebar, it's always good to put a packing slip in there because if the label gets damaged, there's a way to get it back to you or to the person it belongs to. Otherwise, it goes in the lost letter office and is never seen again. And then you can really get nitpicky because I can start saying, well, let's see, it's $50 to get printing cartridges for my printer, and I get about maybe 2,000, so I could divide that out. Wear and tear on the laptop, gas to get to the post office, assuming I don't want to walk to the post box. So there's all these costs of goods, not to mention time, which a lot of people, when they're self-employed, doing eBay or doing it themselves, they don't take in their time factor. It's kind of, Cory, would you work a job if they said, you know, Cory, we appreciate your job, but we can only really give you like $4 an hour? And you're like, no, I'll go do something else.
Yeah.
Because that's essentially what a job is. Somebody's paying for your time and you're giving them hopefully a value. A lot of self-employed people don't look at it that way. They look at it like, oh, I made $100 today. I said, yeah, well, you could have made more if you went to work. By the way, they called and said, if you don't show up Monday, don't come in at all.
Woohoo! 3-day weekend.
So hopefully that's a little, that to me, that's clearer. So, and of course, if
it also fits for an artist.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
I am getting a piece done for the t-shirt on PW Pro Wrestling Tees for the stuff I do on PW Insider. We have the AEW post-show party. Most of the audio shows on PW Insider have a t-shirt. So we're getting a t-shirt done. And there's an artist that I've commissioned who's drawing it. And she said, well, what do you want? I explained it, and she put her price at $125. And I know that she's new at this because normally she just does, somebody says, hey, can you draw this anime character for me? Can you draw this for me? And I asked her, how many hours is it going to take you to do this? And she told me, and I said, okay, with the $125, you're making $10 an hour. Is that fair? Because a lot of people will go, wow, $125 for an art piece, that's kind of expensive. But if it's going to take the person 12 hours, they're making $10 an hour. They make more working at Target than drawing that art for you, where they may have to do numerous versions, et cetera, et cetera. It's the same with the comic shop. And I always wanted to explain this at Shinder's, but we didn't. But I think you and I did explain this when people would come in to buy to sell us books at Hot Comics. When you weren't there, I would say, now, here's da-da-da-da-da, Joe will come in and take a look. The only books in here are worth this much. And we're going to he'll offer you at most half. And they would, the eyes would bug out and they'd go, but it's worth, these 5 books together are worth $200. And I said, right. But I've got it there, and there. So we already have them on the shelf. We haven't sold them at the price that they're worth. And from the profit of this sale, Joe needs to pay rent, lights, heat, air conditioning, insurance, salaries. Because, when most people come in, it's worth $100, so I want 90. No, you're not going to get that unless it's something that if I ran a comic shop and somebody had a book that's worth $100 and he said, I want 90 for it, unless the person right behind him wants to buy it, there's absolutely no way I would buy it, grade it, price it, and then inventory it for a $10 profit. And people don't understand that. Now, there are some places that are way out of line with it. A half-price book and magazine always bugs me because they offer you literal pennies on the dollar. But GameStop is another one where people go, well, they only offered me $3 for this game that they're selling for $20. Yeah, did you ask them how many they have? Because if they've got 15 of them, they're going to be storing it and paying taxes on it, and they need to make a profit on it for that store to continue.
Well, like when I sold the shop, I pulled out all the boxes that were in back and put them out. I had, I swear, 4 boxes of not the death of Superman. But
yeah, the return of Superman. Yeah,
everything beyond that.
Everybody had that, and 2 years after it was over, everybody was selling it.
Yeah.
Now, does this mean that the periodical comic is going to go away? I have been saying for 40 years that the periodical comic is probably going to go away. And one of the things that boggles my mind, we hear all these people who, oh, well, I put my comic on Kickstarter. You want to know why I'm not going to pay for your comic on Kickstarter? Because I go there and it's all right. Here's my 32-page comic. What's the lowest tier where I could get the physical comic sent to me? $15. Your comic is not worth $15 when I could buy a professionally produced Marvel book for $3.99. It's just that simple. Yes, there are people who are going to do that. But for the average person, well, you could get the comic mailed to your house. The cheapest tier is $15. Oh, but if you want a sketch in it, yeah, a sketch would be cool. And I would pay premium for that. But at the lower tiers, it's a waste of money. Which is why I will back graphic novels or hardcovers or things like that. Because then, yes, the price is still too high, but at least I'm getting value for it. And I think the other thing that you and I both have been hammering on since the show started, if you're a comic shop and you're just dealing in periodical comics, you're not long for this world. You've got to expand and become a pop culture store. Just like I said, with hobby game sales up by a third. There's next to no business that is growing that fast. Graphic novels up over 100% from 2018 to 2021. 300% since 2016. Nothing is growing that fast, not even pharmaceuticals. It's all in the type of shop that you're going to have. Are you going to have the kind of shop you want, or are you going to have the kind of shop that customers want? And a lot of these older shops, and Brian Hibbs is a great guy. I've talked to him a number of times. He does excellent market analysis. He knows his business. He does very well in business. But there are times like he's stuck in that old mindset of, I want the shop that I want, rather than moving toward the shop that the market wants. And other than that, how have you spent your last 3 weeks, Joe?
Pretty much what I talked about. And I'll talk a little bit more when we get freaking geeking, but it's that work, home. Just waiting. Like I said, I'm trying to figure if I'm going to take I was actually going to call you and say, hey, blow off Tuesday. Let's go to Duluth for the day. We'll hit the shops, have dinner, come back. But I know you can't do that.
Yeah, because I'm at both jobs on Tuesdays.
I know.
Remember how I said that I had put in to no longer work on Fridays?
Yeah, that was a great comedy bit.
Well, here's the thing. They've asked me to do 2, and they threw bonuses at me. But here's the thing. I also get off early.
Ooh.
So, and then they haven't asked for any after that. So maybe I'm just helping them get over the hump.
Cool.
But then I've had a couple bills come in that I won't talk about on the air, but I'm going to be pulling some overtime. Because you get that bill and you open it up and you go, the eyes bug out like you're the old cartoon character. Holy cats! And it's okay. When they call for the overtime and they offer bonuses, I'm grabbing all of it. I just wish some of the overnight staff would get caught drinking on the job again so I could get those wonderful sleeping overnight shifts. You know who else has been busy, Joe?
Well, I know everybody at the State Fair is.
These guys, our sponsors. Our newest sponsor is NordVPN. Let's be honest, if you're out on the internet, you need a VPN to protect you. There's all sorts of things going on the internet where people can track you. You could accidentally download a keylogger, all sorts of things. NordVPN gives the best security possible. It has a password manager which generates complex passwords, syncs across all your devices, stores your notes and credit card information. It also gives you 10 gigabytes of private cloud storage, secure files. It backs up your data automatically. But the main thing it gives you is peace of mind. It gives you peace of mind when you're out on the internet, when you're streaming, when you're playing games, when you're listening to podcasts like this one. It gives you safety anywhere at any time. It protects your online activity. You get full access to all content. And if you use the link go.nordvpn.net sh3ku, it'll take you to where you can get a great deal for a 1-month plan, a 2-year plan, a 1-year plan. They are our newest sponsor. We're happy to have them. And if you would like to sponsor something here at any of the podcasts on the Solitaire Rose Network, you can. Just email me, solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. Thanks. And I've been busy too with other podcasts. Yes, I cheat on you, but I also did podcasts without you.
You slut.
I know. I did a podcast on public domain that I've been threatening to do. And I talked about one of the things that Joe and I do behind the curtain is I will throw topics at him and he'll say whether he's interested in talking about them or not. And one topic I've wanted to do forever is public domain comics. And Joe will say, I don't know anything about that.
I don't know anything about it.
So I've done a special Crazy Comics and Stories all about it while Joe was up at a lake.
Yeah.
Staring at the water, being with his wife like a loser.
Oh, it was the best loser I ever had.
But here's all the other podcasts I do. The Solitaire Rose Podcast Network is filled with all kinds of audio goodness. First, there's Crazy Comics and Stories. It's been going since 2010. It drops every Monday, and it has me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard, and Joe Crazy Writer talking comics, shenanigans, and whatever we're freaking and geeking about. Every Monday morning. It's been going since 2010, and it's available at crazycomics.solitairerose.com. Also on that same feed is the Solitaire Rose Podcast, which is me, again, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard, doing interviews, talking about comics history, pretty much talking about whatever I want to talk about. We've also got Solo Joe, where Joe Crazy Writer does a solo podcast, and he hasn't done one in a while, so kick him in the shins to get him started. We also, on that same feed, have Solitaire Rose Series and Review, where we do DVD commentary of older comic book series. That's all at crazycomics.solitairerose.com. I also do a podcast with Wolfie B. Bad at badadvice.solitairerose.com, where we take listener questions and give them bad advice. There's also Novelcast, where I take the novels I've written and turn them into free audiobooks. That's at novels.solitairerose.com. There's also Fantastic Forecast, where myself and Adam Vermillion are going through the entire run of the Fantastic Four, 4 issues at a time. That's fantasticforecast.solitairerose.com. There are always more podcasts at the Solitaire Rose Podcast Network. Be there. Aloha. Now, Joe, there's all sorts of comic shows going on. Some in the Twin Cities, some all around the world.
Yes.
And this is where we talk about them.
And of course, if you have a show, and again, this is a worldwide podcast, you want us to promote, or hell, you got an event you want us to promote, let us know. But so far, the ones we've got are Minnesota, how would you say, centric. And there's a couple coming up. Remember how I mentioned the comic show, toy show weekend? Another one's coming up. The first one is the Minnesota Comic Exchange Comics Show. A guy, Chris, who helped me distribute flyers for Microcon. They're doing it at Valley Creek Mall, September 17th. And you can go to valleycreekmall.com, check it out. 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., free admission. Another free admission will be the following day, the Minnesota Toy Posse's mid-September toy sale, Sunday, September 18th, 9 a.m. to 1:30 p.m., free admission, inside and out again at 2507 East 25th Street in Minneapolis. Always a good time. I lucked out last one because it was one of those days like, well, it might rain. And when I got up, it's like, there's no rain nearby. So we're good to go. Also on the 17th, again, back on Saturday, my buddy at Remix is doing a record palooza at Uncommon Loon Brewing Company, which will be Saturday, September 17th at Uncommon Loon in Chisago City. That's, 10825 Lake Boulevard, Chisago City. It'll be from noon to 5 p.m., free to attend. There'll be record vendors, a few comic book vendors, video games, as well as a few others. So going to be a busy weekend then. The following weekend, of course, we've got Microcon 3, the comic book show, down at the Mermaid Center, in the Atlantis Event Room. That's 2200 Mounds View Boulevard in Mounds View. $5 per person to get in. Kids 9 and under are free. A lot of dealers, a lot of artists, 6,000 square feet of action. Comic book fun, you know. And of course, Twin Cities Con will be November 11th through 13th at the Minneapolis Convention Center. This is probably more of a traditional con where they're bringing in lots of guests. They're going to have comics, toys, TV, film, art, cosplay, games, all things. As we get closer, I'll tell more about that, but you can go right to their website, Twin Cities Con, and check out the guests, check out how much it'll be to get there, make reservations, get your tickets, all that fun stuff. And then Nerding Out Con will be October 7th through 9th at the Mayo Civic Center down in Rochester at the Mayo Civic Center. It's going to be bigger, better than ever. Let's see. They drop guests. Emily Swallow from The Armorer, Star Wars The Mandalorian, Darby Allen from AEW Star. You should probably know that one, Cory. Denise Crosby from Star Trek, Claire Blackwelder from Power Rangers, Neil Ross, a voice actor. Tons of people. Go to nerdingoutcomicscon.com. You can get tickets at the stores or online at Ticketmaster, of course. And that's one I would love to get to because it just sounds like it's a blast. That's pretty much the shows we know of. And again, if you got something you want us to promote, it's free. Ain't cost nothing.
And now we get to my favorite part of the show. No, not where I eat a whole bunch of cookies and then try to do the podcast with a mouthful of chocolate chips.
Oh, I could do that. I could call in from the State Fair next week. You know, Cory, I'm going down the giant slide.
By the way, I have heard that with the Sweet Martha's cookies in the store,
Mm.
the frozen ones, don't bake them. You just eat them when they're thawed out. Don't know if that's true or not,
No,
but
not true.
that
Not
is
true.
what has been
Because
reported to me.
they're in the frozen. That's if you like raw cookie dough and all the dangers it comes with. So, yeah, actually, Holly took my batch that I had the year without the show, and she cooked it herself, and she said, yes, good way to go.
No, it's Freaking a Geeking Joe. What are you freaking on?
I'm going to get super serious for a while. I'm going to talk about testicular cancer because it can be found at an early stage when they're small and haven't spread. Very rarely does it cause symptoms that lead to medical attention. Most of the time, a lump on a testicle is the first symptom, or the testicle might be swollen or larger than normal. Some might not cause symptoms at all. The best thing you can do is give yourself, talking to guys, your own self-examination. You can have doctors do it as well, but you know if something new is there. I say that because I found something doing a testicular self-exam. And yeah, that's been waiting real heavily on my mind. I found it right before my hernia surgery because they give you that soap to decontaminate your body.
Yes.
And as you're down in the zone, you're like, oh, that feels odd. And I forgot about it. And then I had COVID with a pink eye chaser. Recently, to be comedic about it, rediscovered it, and it's getting bigger. So I make a doctor appointment. That was beginning of August. I saw him last week. And he's like, yeah, we're going to have to send you to urologist. Or no, first they sent me to an ultrasound because, again, it could be anything. If you look on WebMD, they said usually a lump in your testicle will be kind of on the side. It's very rarely under it. I've got like a marble under my nut. And it doesn't hurt. Yes, guys, don't be a pussy. Talk to your woman or your wife about mammograms. Talk to them about gynecology exams. For you to be squirmish because you don't like the way it feels when you're pressing on your testicles, or you don't like prostate exams, stop being such a pussy and man up, because this could literally save your fucking life, okay? So I'm going to say about that. But as I'm examining my testicle, it's like, oh, okay, tender. Wow, that doesn't feel like anything. There's like no nerves on it. And again, like every other dumbass in America, I go, oh, WebMD. It could be a benign. It could be a blocked tubes. Guys, we got a lot of tubes down there, in case you didn't realize that. It could be very aggressive. It could be not aggressive. I don't know. So you go in and you have the ultrasound done, and yes, it is attached to the testicle. What I found interesting is that, just like I talked about when I had my colon exam, why do the youngest women possible get into this field? Okay,
maybe it's just that they
there's money in them there nuggets.
No, you start on the lowest level.
Well, it's hard to say.
It's kind of like the old, you start in the mailroom at the corporation. You start at the place that no one wants to work.
Because I talked to,
you got the least seniority.
Yeah, and I talked to her, and they're very discreet about it. Obviously she's going to have to look at your scrotum, but I'm kind of like, I'm 57. I've had 2 hips replaced. I had hernia surgery. I'm way beyond modesty. And she laughed because she's telling me a story about a guy who was like in his 80s coming in for an exam. And again, you're not going to her unless they think they found something. And he thought they were going to do it through the clothing. When he found out they had to lower the trousers, he left. And she has no idea if he ever came back. And like I said before, I always laugh because Pat Gruber was always, my old partner was always, I don't want to get no prostate exam, until his doctor read him the Riot Act about, I go up in the stirrups every 6 months. I don't want to hear about you tired about a 10-second finger in your ass. Just get it done. Sorry, way sidebar. anyway, so they took a lot of pictures. They looked at both testicles, which is good. They go up and check the kidneys because all of it's connected down there. And I got a call the next day that I'm going to have to make an appointment with a urologist who will decide what to do. The freaking is I don't see her till October 4th. I'm talking to you on the 25th of August. And I got this call on Tuesday. Or was it Wednesday? I don't know. It's been a hell of a week. So obviously it's not a big concern because like in the case when Pat was trying to figure out what was wrong. What would you say? I want to say it was with his colon, but he was having gastronomical trouble. And they took pictures and they go, we need you to come back in. Why? Well, there's something on the kidney. And that's how they found out he had kidney cancer. Again, another disease, totally no symptoms. Not related to what Pat was going through, but he had to deal with it. Good thing he did. And I asked her about that. I said, I know you're taking pictures of kidney, and here's where I'm coming from. My friend, they found it. But if you found something, would you see it? And she goes, yeah, you probably would. I mean, and you're not going to catch like little tumors, but if there's something there, we will definitely call you on it. The only reason I'm not, oh my God, freaking is because in Pat's case, he got an order stat. He was in the next day getting not an ultrasound, but well, I guess it is an ultrasound. This, what do they call it? What I get for free when I go through the CTX machines at work, So they obviously it's not something like, okay, we got to get you in right away. They're like, okay, go make an appointment. And I'm pretty sure there are guys who don't make an appointment, but mine's coming up over a month away, which freaked me out. So we will not visit this again until after October 4th. In the meantime, the takeaway is, guys, Google it, figure out how to do a self-exam for testicular cancer. Warning signs and signs of it: if you got a lump or enlargement on either testicle, a feeling of heaviness in the scrotum, a dull ache in the abdomen or groin, a sudden collection of fluid in the scrotum, pain or discomfort in a testicle or in the scrotum, enlargement or tenderness of your breasts, or back pain. I only have the lump, and it doesn't hurt, it doesn't feel heavy, it doesn't ache, it's just there. And it was kind of like, yeah, there's a lump where it shouldn't be. So anyways, that's as serious as I'm going to get today. And that's part of what I'm freaking on. Cory, I'm going to throw it to you. What are you freaking on?
We've had another passing in the world of comics. This one hurt because it was Tom Palmer, who is 81. Yeah. Tom Palmer has been inking at Marvel since the 60s. And the way he got into comics, he was referred to Marvel, and Stan took a look at his stuff, gave him a Doctor Strange story to draw. He drew it, and Stan said, I guess it's okay, but it's not good enough for us to give you the assignment. And Palmer then said, well, do you have any work inking? And it was, well, Gene Colan's doing the next issue. Would you like to ink that? Now, I've seen Gene Colan's pencils. A lot of people have. They have, in a number of comics, published directly from his pencils. And every inker you will ever talk to will talk about how it's very hard to ink Gene Colan because of the way he uses shadow and gradation in his pencils. Tom Palmer was able to do it in a heartbeat. Handled it perfectly. Stan thought it was the best Gene's pencils had looked, hired him, gave him a contract. And what it was when you were on contract with Marvel, you're still a freelancer, but it's okay. We will give you this many pages at this much per page for this amount of time. And he's stayed at Marvel ever since. He's probably best known for his run on Tomb of Dracula with Gene Colan, inking John Buscema all over the place, but especially on Avengers. But he inked at Marvel from the late 60s until just recently. And if you're friends with people on Facebook. Everyone who knew him talked about what a gentleman he was, how polite he was, how happy he was to be in the business, how he was a joy to work with, how he always hit his deadlines. He never, editors talked about if you gave something to Tom Palmer, you knew you were going to get it back early and it would look great, fantastic. And in a lot of ways, that's all you need to have a career in comics. Once you get your foot in the door, if your stuff looks good and you're getting it in on time, they're happy with you. And his son wrote a wonderful piece because his son also works in comics, was an editor over at Wizard and has worked in comics all over the place as well. Wrote a wonderful piece about how, to everybody else, he was this inker extraordinaire, et cetera, But me, when I was a kid, I would wait for him to get done because he was home all the time. And when he was done, we could do things. And that's one of the things about the older creators that I love hearing those stories about how, I like this job because I could work at home. Kurt Swan, when he was at our convention, I was at the bar talking to him, and he said the best thing about the job was if he knocked off early, he could go fishing or go bowling or go do something. So I was like, yeah, I'd wake up at 8 o'clock. I'd be done with everything I needed to do by noon. Have the rest of the day to just fuck around. And Mark Evanier talks about this on his blog every so often. People will say, well, why don't you do a Golden Age panel anymore? And he'll say, look around the convention. How many Golden Age creators are there? And he said it's starting to get that way with Silver Age. And it's starting to get that way with creators from the 70s as well. So as we always say, if you get a chance to meet the creators that you loved when you were a kid or a teenager or even into your 20s, just thank them for what they did. Talk to them about their career. They are a treasure trove of wonderful stories. Tom Palmer's work is going to be missed. He was one of those guys who, if I saw his name in the credits, I knew that whoever the penciler was, his stuff would look the best it possibly could. The rest is all entertainment type stuff. Neil Gaiman has been promoting Sandman all over the place.
Yay!
But one of the things that he said was, yes, we are the #1 show on Netflix. And it's been reported, Nielsen puts out statistics, but the problem with Nielsen's statistics is that they're second, third, or fourth hand. But they say that Sandman is the #1 streamed TV show in the world. But Neil Gaiman has said that it is so expensive, it may not get a second season. So please watch it all the way to the end so that Netflix knows that people like it and want more. And to me, the fact that this is a #1 show and they're still saying, oh, don't know if there are enough viewers. Boggles my mind and makes me wonder if these streaming services are sustainable. Because last year, the #1 TV show on network TV was Chicago PD. Now, if we got toward February and NBC said, well, yes, it's the #1 show, but we don't know if we're going to renew it, people would lose their minds. What do you mean? It's the #1 show on TV, and you're saying it's not popular enough to get another season? That's crazy. And of course, it doesn't work that way because NBC was like, oh my God, Dick Wolf here. We're going to shovel barrelfuls of money at you. We're renewing it for 2 more seasons just so you keep doing this show. Whereas with the streaming services, they're like, we don't know. Over on Discovery, which now owns Warner Brothers, they cut, what was it? They had to cut $3 billion worth of costs. And one of the ways they did that was canceling money that was allocated for movies and series, or movies that were already done were shelved so that they could take a tax cut write-off on it. That means the completed Batgirl movie $90 million. Shelved. Nobody gets to see it. The Scooby-Doo movie, shelved. Nobody gets to see it. They're pulling stuff off the streaming service. And even the creators of stuff on it are like, well, it doesn't cost them anything to keep it on the streaming service. No, we have to do this, so that we can, take it as a tax write-off, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. First off, Discovery being in charge of Warner worried me when I first heard about it, and now it really looks like the guy in charge of Discovery he has his own way of doing things. If you know Discovery networks, they're all reality freak shows. Dr. Pimple Popper, My Fat Fabulous Life, the show about little people dating on TLC, My 600-Pound Sisters, My 1,000-Pound Life, 90 Day Fiancé. Those are cheap. They have no shelf life, though. Reality shows don't have a shelf life, and they don't go on for very long. Just look at all the reality shows of the past. Honey Boo Boo got huge, crazy ratings. Does anybody give a flaming rat's ass about Honey Boo Boo? No. Does anybody go back and watch the old episodes? No. They have no shelf life. Duck Dynasty. There for about 2 years, it was, Duck Dynasty's everywhere. You'd even go to the gas station, they'd have Duck Dynasty merchandise. Now, show's canceled, none of them can get work, and nobody's watching it on streaming. Why? Because it's a reality show. It's ephemeral. Doesn't matter. People are still watching old scripted shows. There are entire digital networks like MeTV, Antenna TV, Cozy TV, etc. They make a lot of money just showing old TV shows. But nope, the guy in charge of Discovery canceled all scripted shows on TBS. All of them. TNT canceled all scripted shows. Shelving movies that are already made. There are people at Warner who are saying, once my contract with them is up, I'm never working for them again. There are comic creators who've written animated shows. J.M. Matias, over the last month, has sent out tweets saying, here are the animated shows that I've done. You may want to buy DVDs of them because the way Discovery is pulling scripted stuff off HBO Plus, they may not be available. Please watch them now or buy DVDs so you can have copies of them. It's almost like they bought it to tear it apart. And we've gone through this before with Warner's when AOL bought them. First thing AOL did is say, get rid of everything. Get rid of the wrestling, get rid of the scripted stuff. We're not going to pay all these rights fees for sports, et cetera, et cetera. Then AOL, shockingly, people didn't want dial-up internet anymore once they were able to get high-speed internet, and AOL fell apart, and basically Warner Brothers was able to spin them off, but the people who were in charge of AOL and drove it into the ground were still in charge of Warner. Then AT&T bought Warner Brothers, and they cut a lot of stuff. They're the reason why everybody at DC Comics who was making over a certain amount of money got fired. I don't understand these business people when we can look at it and go, you're losing money. They cut $3 billion in costs, which they had to do for Wall Street. But the problem is, in cutting those costs, their market cap, what the company was worth, the stock went down so much they lost $20 billion. I'm going to tell you right now, Joe, if there's something you like and something you're going to watch more than once, physical media, because streaming is the golden age of streaming is over. It's over. It's done. When it's all of these cool new shows are coming out. Well, guess what, kids? People watched it when there was a pandemic, but now they're finding other stuff to do. What are you geeking on, Joe?
Okay, let's see. Visited every comic store in town. Check. family get together, check. Went to the lake, check. Went to a con, check. Speaking of which, I watched the 2 episodes of She-Hulk. She-Hulk suffering from what I call wokeitis. A bunch of you right-wing pukes are going crazy because it's a strong female character. So you're going to IMDb and you're trashing its rating. It's a good show. I like it. I enjoy it. I was pleased that it was a half hour, just like Big Bang Theory, just like MASH. I can turn it on. I can watch it. I can enjoy it. I enjoyed the first 2 episodes, I should say, and it's going to be a regular watch for me on Thursday. And I say that with tons of other Marvel series and movies I have yet to actually watch.
You know what the cool thing about it is that I like? It's one of the few series that really feels like the comic, the Byrne Slott run. And there were people who, it's not like the comics, in the comics, Hulk was blah, 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 blah. And I said, first off, it's real clear you didn't read the Peter David run on the Hulk. And also it's real clear you never read the John Byrne and Dan Slott issues, because the plot literally taken from one of the Dan Slott issues.
When I had people bitching that, that ain't the way she is in Avengers, man, they totally ruined her. I'm like, you really got to get caught up. There's been 4 issues of She-Hulk where she's back to the way she was. Kind of like our old buddy Dags bitching about the female Thor. I'm like, dude, that's like, how long ago was that? 5 years ago? 6 years ago?
Oh, like 7 or 8 now.
Yeah, it's over. You're stuck in a mindset. You don't get it. Speaking of another show, and you touched on it, absolutely loving Sandman. And I'll give you a clue as to how I know these are 2 shows that have it. My wife's watching them. She-Hulk, she enjoyed. She won't mind spending 30 minutes. And Sandman is a little rougher. I don't think my wife likes shows you have to think about. I think she just wants, which is weird because I watch her watch Supernatural, and I'm like, good Lord, woman, what the blankety blank are you watching? People screaming, people getting tortured, and that's her relaxing. She wants a show she can watch and just sit on her phone, and which again annoys me no get out, because occasionally, especially like when we were watching Babylon 5, I got to stop and go, you probably want to watch this. Just a little guy who's been torturing the person has a Psychor logo. Anyways, Sandman, she's been enjoying. We took the first 6 onesie twosies. What I'm loving, absolutely loving, is the way Neil himself is very much involved in this, has changed it and altered it for today's TV. Again, some of the references, there's a public group I'm on called The Sandman. It's a great group, mainly because Neil's on it, occasionally. It's run by Amanda Pike. So if you're looking for Sandman groups, you see the public group, you'll see her. You'll also see me pop up here and then. Because, we have our own history with Neil, especially when people are, why doesn't Neil draw? And it's like, hey, I got a drawing from Neil. And again, they don't tolerate racism. They don't tolerate homophobia. They're not tolerating gatekeepers. You come on there and you say, I don't like her because she's black. Boom, you're out. So all that bullshit nonsense is away. Yeah. I would have loved a nice, pale, goth, skinny, tank-topped Death. But the actress, and forgive me because I don't have the names up right now, home run. Absolutely loving it. For me, what's exciting, it's a 30-year-old story. I know what's going to happen. I know what should happen. I'm expecting certain things. There's certain things that are pulled off. I can ask, hey, why didn't they do it this way? Why didn't they do it that way? A couple examples. And again, if you haven't seen it, skip over this. If you have read Sandman comic, don't, whatever. I have read the scene from Sandman number 7, book 1, where Death comes and claims the old Jewish fiddler. Seen it, read it hundreds of times. When I saw it on the Sandman, I was tearing. That's acting. To get me something, I know what's coming, and I'm almost bawling. On the other hand, when they did the one where she picks up the baby who dies. And again, she's not killing them. She's just there when you die to get you moving on, give you a friendly face. She picks him up. There's no dialogue between them, but she's reading what the baby's saying. In the comic, I can barely read it without tearing it when the mom comes back and crashes to her knees. No, they didn't do that in the show, and I was braced for it. And Neil said, we thought that was more torture porn. We didn't need it. It was dramatic enough the way it is. And it probably weighed heavily on people who have had children die on them. Another one that I just didn't get. Somebody was complaining, did not like the way despair was shown. Why has it got to be a overweight middle-class woman wearing Crocs? And I asked Amanda, the moderator, can I put this picture up from the wake of despair in, I think I said despair, maybe I said desire, I don't know. But despair in all her naked, gothy, grotesque goodness. And she said, yeah, do it. I said, okay, this is my despair. I understand why HBO ain't gonna, or Netflix ain't gonna do it. I also don't fault the actress for playing it because I've only seen her in one brief moment and I thought she knocked it out of the park. Turns out the guy who wrote the post and refused to back down on it was himself overweight and took offense at it. And I'm like, are you really familiar with the source material? So you get that type of stuff. You also get people absolutely loving the show, asking good questions. Like here's one. The Sandman star Mason Alexander Park shares first look at their Quantum Leap character. And somebody's going, oh crap, I was not going to watch the new Quantum Leap reboot, but now I'm going to. So the show I'm loving. For me, it's so brilliant just seeing how Neil takes, especially in that last 4-issue story arc or episode story arc, takes stuff from all different issues, all different books, not where I would expect it to. He's kind of twisting it around. The big thing, because he's not using DC mythos for various reasons. Again, I would have loved to seen it. Yeah, I'd like Tom Ellis as Lucifer, but the actress who played it, besides being beautifully tall, hit it out of the park. Love it. Would I like to have seen the actor from CW come in and play Martian Manhunter and whatever? It has nothing to do with it. It stands of itself. It's fun. That's part of the reasons why I mentioned earlier that I picked up at big cost the Audible Sandman, because some of the people online said, oh, I've listened to the audio and it is so cool. And granted, Cory and I, you and I bemused, how many more versions of Sandman do we need? Annotated, maybe. And I'm thinking, boy, do I want to get the big books and look at the art? And I actually was worried a little bit because I thought I have the banded hardcover version where each version was a different color, but they're all the same because of a band. And I couldn't find Brief Lives, which I believe is number 7. And I asked Dana because she had them all. She said, no return. I said, well, okay, maybe it's missed. Maybe I went to look it up, and those run are going for like about $80 to $100 on the eBays. And I thought, well, I could replace everything. Turns out old Joe's just not quite as good with Roman numerals as I thought I was, because I had placed it after the wake. So, I got them all. Don't worry about it. So, yeah, I can't say enough about Sandman. I believe they know there's a distinct possibility that Netflix is going to totally fuck up and not do a second season. Neil himself has said, we may be able to shop this somewhere else. Obviously not HBO Max. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. So, on the reading storefront, I've been reading lots of stuff. I've read the 3rd book of Iron Man, Books to Korvac, and I may be checking out of this because I wanted to read.
You don't have to.
Oh, it's over?
It's going to be over, and a new creative team starts in December.
Oh, okay, so I got maybe one more book I can read, and then I'll read the whole run, which is cool because it ends kind of neat. But I just wanted to read the Korvac run, and I got on it too late. I reread Superman Phantom Zone. which was a series, again, Steve Gerber, Gene Colan, tons of other people as well. Well, I guess they included the final chapter from DC Comics Presents, which kind of tied into it, which again was written by Steve Gerber. But boy, the original series really stuck with me. And I gave Cory a scan of the one that sticks to me to this day. And basically it's kind of Zod runs amok and Superman is pissed beyond anything he ever had been because Quixel died trying to get everybody out of the zone. And as soon as Zod is done wrecking at the other end of Metropolis, is Superman just standing there. I've been waiting for you, Zod. There's something we have to discuss. Charlie Quixel, he's dead. You're going to have to pay for that. And Zod, who looks a little like Yul Brynner, forgive me for not trembling, Gale, but what am I to fear in light of your moronic code against killing? Superman attacks. You're right. I can't take your life, much as I'm tempted. But my code doesn't say a damn thing about battering you within an inch of it. And then Superman thinks as a seemingly lifeless, unconscious Zod's in his hand. And there are moments when I think I should chuck that code altogether. Steve, if you were alive, I would tell Cory I need his number. I have to call him and tell him how incredible that panel was. It stuck to me to this day. I read this in the golden age of my collecting because I loved the series and I just absolutely love it now. And I picked this up in a trade paperback where everything is pretty and it does include the DC final chapter, which again, dull me, didn't realize Steve wrote. Speaking of the brief lives, volume 7 that I missed, I read it. So enjoyed it. I'm just loving it. Part of me wonders, the big debate, who, if there is a new series, Netflix, I'm looking at you, is going to be Delirium. Lots of different actresses. And it's absolute fun to read. And then I did pull out Death, the deluxe edition. And I haven't read these in ages. This has everything in it, including her first appearance, the appearance in Sandman, where Facade, that's where Elemental Lady, girl, whatever her name was, passes away. It has Death in Venice in it, which I believe was that the last issue?
Yeah.
Yep. Including some of the one-shots from short stories, The Winter's Tale, The Wheel, Death Talks About Life, things I don't ever recall reading. So I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I've been reading the Sandman back and forth, just enjoying it. Holly, my daughter Holly, absolutely loves it. Dana doesn't have Netflix. Code's coming. I'll tell you later. I mentioned I did buy the Doomsday Clock. I read that as well. Loved it. I don't know if it has any bearing on anything going on at DC right now. Some people say it does, because even within DC continuity, there's a couple different futures that are happening in the regular comics that don't jive with each other. Jeff Johns is still writing stuff around, so even though Quesada and Jones aren't in charge of their respective companies, we may still see that fight between Thor, a god of thunder, and a great big behemoth who gives his life stopping Doomsday. 2030, baby. I'm not holding my breath, like Cory said. Don't hold your breath. I said, well. Or you said you're not holding your breath.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath.
I don't want to hold your breath either, but that's a different subject. That's a lot of reading, and I read a ton of comics, and I imagine we got an overdue review coming up sooner or later. Couple last things. My wife got tickets to go see the Clerks 3 screening. I mention that only because it's probably on a night I'm going to be working, so I'm feeling a little verklempt that night. Maybe not. I got a new bid shift coming up, and while everybody's always nervous, I'm like, I don't particularly care. If I can score a weekend off, I will. If I can keep the Thursday off that Cory and I record on, I will. It all depends on where it lands when I get up to bid on. So I do think I'll be able to keep the 10-hour days. A lot of guys are like, oh, I want the 3 days off. I said, yeah, but you got to work 10 hours. You barely make it to 8:30 and you're going nuts. There have been times, because of all of the weird flights, and just Google airline delays and canceled flights, you'll know what I'm talking about. If their flight hasn't taken off, I got to be there. So there's plenty of times I should have gone home at 10 o'clock. I did go home at 1 a.m. Again, I don't care. I'm trying to get up as much sick time and comp time as I can because, well, again, we're not going to talk about that till October. So that was kind of a sort of freaking kind of geeking, but it was fun. Cory, what are you geeking on?
Not as much as you, but some cool stuff. Number one, the She-Hulk series that you talked about. I had so much fun watching it.
Yes.
And the other thing is, I've been talking for a while about how there's not a decent sitcom. I don't have a sitcom to watch. Mr. Mayor, the one I was liking, got canceled. Before that, we had The Good Place. But right now, there's really nothing. And I don't know if it's that I've gotten older and they don't appeal to me, or like the writer Ken Levine wrote, there's just nobody at a network who understands comedy because it's easier to drop a drama in. Dramas are not as hard to create and write as a comedy.
But on the plus side, and I forgot this because I was geeking on Sandman, Star Trek Lower Decks new season started.
Yep.
Yay!
But She-Hulk made me laugh.
Yes. And what's cool about it, it makes me almost want to go back and see the Ed Norton Hulk, which I never have. I have it in my disc. It's on Disney, but I just never did.
And it also encouraged me to go back and read the Dan Slott She-Hulk, which I read when it came out, but that's 20 years ago now.
Yeah.
Boy, don't that make you feel old. And it was Dan Slott's first superhero book at Marvel. We all forget that because he got kind of pigeonholed into doing comedy because he got on writing at Marvel, writing Ren and Stimpy because he was really the only one who understood the Ren and Stimpy humor, and Ren and Stimpy was a huge selling book, so he kind of got pigeonholed as a comedy writer. He had to go over to DC and write a Batman miniseries before people at Marvel went, hey! But I'm going back and reading the She-Hulk, and there's so many fun ideas that are just thrown against the wall. And I listened to an interview with him where he said part of it was he would write it full script, but the artist would change stuff based on what he felt like drawing that day. And rather than argue about it, it's like, okay, this looks really good. I got to figure out a way to work it in. So there's a wonderful sort of improv to the comic. Also, streaming-wise, I finished watching the Netflix version of Iron Chef. I have always loved Iron Chef. I don't know if I have told the story of how I fell in love with Iron Chef, but my son got me hooked on it in the late 90s when it was on Food Network and they showed the Japanese version with the terrible dubbing and the over-the-top music and everything. And that kind of became our thing. It was on Sunday nights, and it was, okay, we're going to watch Iron Chef, then we watch The Simpsons, then we watch Family Guy. And it was the first cooking competition show, and it was, you would see these chefs doing things, and you go, I wonder if I could do that. And that's kind of where I started getting into cooking, to the point where I still see myself as a kind of, I dabble in it. But there are also friends who say, Cory, you have Mirepoix in your fridge at all times. Normal people aren't like that. Oh, okay, I guess, whatever. But they did an American version, and Food Network kind of screwed it up toward the last few years. But then Netflix bought the rights to do a new version, and they went back to kind of the original format. They brought Alton Brown back. And it was, okay, this is about the best chefs in the world taking one ingredient, taking a single ingredient and doing everything they can with it. And for some reason, it just works for me. And they did a, 8-episode series. And I had to pace myself or I would have watched the whole thing. And it's, okay, what's the next one? What's the next one? What's the next one? And I'm actually learning how to pace myself with that. Comic-wise, Dan Slott's Fantastic Four is over. And he even talked about how he put all the toys back in the box.
Yes.
His last issue was, I'm putting the toys back in the box. He did add some stuff, but a lot of the stuff that he added was stuff that was out there that nobody used, such as the fact that Reed Richards has half siblings. That was stuff that other writers had thrown in and nobody did anything with. So he decided, okay, I'm going to bring that in. He added to the Fantastic Four's origin, but also made sure that it didn't end the fact that Reed feels guilty about the fact that his family is now, superheroes. One of the things that I really liked was there was this device to fix problems with that people had who'd been hit by cosmic rays. And it's okay, Ben Grimm, you could be cured now. And long ago, Byrne did this, where he wants to be the Thing. He likes being the Thing. He's gotten used to it. He's gotten over his angst about it. He enjoys being the Thing. And Dan Slott used that. And there were people who, no, Ben Grimm wants to be cured. It's like, no, he hasn't wanted to be cured for 25 years. He just basically took stuff that everybody did and kind of refocused it so that the next creative team doesn't have to, I'm reaching back 30 years for this. No, we're bringing all this stuff, making it so everybody can use it. The one thing that's a little weird is that the universe is 10 times bigger than we thought. And all I could think the reason for that is that there's something, they even have it in this issue. For Marvel superheroes to go to another galaxy is like, oh, okay. It's like me going to the grocery store. I want them to bring back that sense of wonder. I want them to bring back the idea that Marvel is the world outside your window. I don't think we'll ever get back to that. But Dan Slott did a wonderful job on the Fantastic Four. I really liked the Reckoning War. I really liked how he sort of has moved the Watchers kind of back to what they were originally, which is they observe, they don't take part, et cetera, et cetera. That got all convoluted over the last 50 years, and he kind of hit the reset button on that. Fantastic Four, he's added more characters to it, but adding rather than changing. He is now going to have his own Spider-Man series, and it looks like that's basically, he just wants to write Spider-Man for the rest of his life. Mm-hmm. And Marvel has said, okay. And Mark Bagley, what do you want to draw? I want to draw Spider-Man for the rest of my life. Okay, we're going to give you two guys a book. And then the last thing that I am geeking on, when Mad Magazine said they were no longer going to do new stories and all they were going to do was reprints, and there was thought Mad's going to get canceled. You and I talked a lot about what they should do. Well, I found out, and I didn't know this because I'm not somebody who goes to Barnes & Noble, they have a Barnes & Noble exclusive bi-monthly Mad magazine called Mad Treasures. And it's a $10 magazine that's like the old Mad Super Specials, 100 pages. And I went to Barnes & Noble and picked them both up, and they reprint some of the best stuff from Mad. They also have some of the newer stuff from Mad, but they kind of collect it around themes, and I really, really like the package. $10 for a magazine seems crazy, but that's because we're older. And we remember when Mad Magazine Super Specials were $2.50. Well, when they were $2.50, comics were 60 cents. So yeah, prices go up.
Damn.
But they're a really good package, and it's bi-monthly. The only problem I have is it's a Barnes & Noble exclusive, and you can't get it anywhere else. It's not available through mail order. You can't subscribe to it. It's not digital. So just like with the Walmart stuff, now I have to go to a physical store every 2 months. Ugh. Thank God I don't have to go to Walmart for those 100 pagers anymore. I miss the 100 pagers, but man, I do not miss having to go to Walmart. Believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us blather on about funny books for an hour and a half.
We could go longer. Don't threaten us.
And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
I forgot to say I recently bought a toilet brush. Long story short, I'm going to have to go back buy some toilet paper. Oh, I forgot. Hang on, I got this in the script. Cory, Mia, music.